Today on the Topic Show, Trump is pulling into all-time high for the Republican nominee, coming in at 59.3%. Joy Behar on The View claims that an AR-15 can demolish an animal and shouldn't be used for hunting. Yes, she is that mentally vacuous. Eventbrite to deplatform completely Riley Gaines' event, even though they allow pro-Hamas events. DeSantis on MSNBC saying Trump should be removed from the primary if convicted. Vivek on his four-step plan for the election integrity goes viral. April Q4 results are in. Six Flags to merge with a fellow amusement park company. Starbucks Q3 sales figures are in, and they're boosted by the pumpkin spice latte. And Uber and Lyft are ordered to pay $328 million in a settlement. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say, he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of November, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Apple. Q4 results are in, and the sales are down yet again. This time now 4 fiscal quarters in a row. Now, specifically, when you look at the breakdown of all the products that people are buying in terms of the Apple products, well, or a better term would be rather all the products they are not currently buying, you see that the Mac sales are down 34% year over year. This is despite having launched a new models recently last month, which one would think that'd be almost impossible. Is Apple going the way of Disney? Apple used to basically not print money for a living, but at one point they were the most profitable publicly traded company on the planet, which is astonishing. That means they're worth more than oil, gas, precious metals. Like, they were the most profitable company. And truth be told, they're one of the most valuable companies in history. I believe they were one of the first companies to hit the $1 trillion mark in terms of public valuation. Subsequently, they later hit the $2 trillion mark and then $3 trillion mark. I mean, they're growing exponentially. Now, they did beat Wall Street expectations, notching a strong growth in its services segment, which that actually includes the App Store, Apple Music, and iCloud. And sales of the iPhone were up, but only by about 2% compared to last year. Now, one of the biggest issues for Apple is the elephant in the room, or perhaps a better metaphor might be the panda in the room. Now, I say that because revenue from China came in at $15.1 billion. That's about $2 billion less than expected per Bloomberg reports. And one of the biggest issues with Apple in China, well, is Huawei. They are one of the largest electronic companies on the planet, and famously, they're headquartered in China. Now, it's been in terms of geopolitics, and one of the reasons why, politics, business, culture, they all merge together. Well, the United States actually banned and completely disallowed any importation of some Huawei devices because they're basically glorified spyware machines. And they're the antithesis of security. If you work for corporate America and you have a Huawei device, let me just say your IT security department is either non-existent or sleeping. There's no legitimate reason to have that on your corporate network at all. And a lot of the government in the United States, they specifically also ban it for corporate devices, for government employees. Now, China, in turn, has done the same thing recently. They banned all government employees from using iPhones. And by de facto, that means they're basically all going to use Huawei devices as well. So Apple, a majority of their manufacturing is in China. That's one of their biggest, largest growing markets. But because of all the political tensions between the United States and China, including things like banning the importation of AI chips into China from the United States, well, they're also kind of taking this out on Apple a little bit, I suspect. And their revenue, they fell again. So the revenue specifically fell to $89.5 billion for their fourth fiscal quarter that ended September 30th. And the importance of the iPhone is that it accounts for about half of their sales. So 50% of their sales come from the iPhone, which also just happens to burst into flames like a Chevy Volt. Well, not as bad as a Chevy Bolt. The iPhone is just overheating, and a lot of people are having troubles with it. But it looks pretty. So, of course, I mean, in terms of aesthetics and design, they get an A+ because it's, magically thin, amazing. But the Apple Fancy Titanium, it's not as great as expected. People are still buying it, don't get me wrong, but I think that rate of adoption is decreasing. And another thing is, think a lot of folks are just starting perhaps to get fatigued when it comes to buying new electronics, almost as if they're disposable devices, which in some cases they are due to software limitations, or rather software being programmed specifically to kneecap your devices as they get older. But for once, Apple is not looking so great. Now, that being said, they're still one of the most largest successful technology companies on the planet. They're not going to go out of business tomorrow, obviously. But it is interesting to see for the fourth quarter in a row, their sales are down. And perhaps this is just businesses. I know Apple does have some corporate clients, of course, where there are a lot of businesses, especially marketing and graphic design. They love Apple products. And more companies are adopting Apple devices, especially for cell phones and corporate devices in that regard. Maybe as businesses, I suspect part of them are just looking for a better ROI or a lower, more economical entry price point. Maybe them are starting to go over to Android. In terms of consumer sales, I mean, how many times do you need to buy a new MacBook? I mean, I contemplated getting one for my IT company for my daily driver, or I was going to say, that's a fun little term for your daily usage device. Unfortunately, you can't actually drive it. It doesn't have 3 pedals and gas engine like all good vehicles should have. But nevertheless, I contemplated looking at the Apple product, but for the same compute power, I can get a Windows-based device for a fraction of the price. And same thing for the editing PC. So we built an editing PC specifically for the podcast, and if we wanted to make a comparable Apple machine, the cost was 3 times as much. And that is astonishing for something you cannot fix on yourself, you can't upgrade on yourself. There's trade-offs. A wise man named Thomas Sowell once said there's no such thing as solutions, only trade-offs. And that's certainly true. You have an all-encompassing device where everything's built in, you're supposedly not have to worry about anything, but downside, you can't fix it, you can't upgrade it, can't really repair it, you have to go if you do third-party, in the rare instances they can fix it, your warranty's gone. It's a little bit of a precarious situation for those who like to work on their own things. So let me know in the comments, do you think Apple will turn this around next fiscal quarter? I mean, ideally they should, because their fiscal quarter is calendar year fiscal Q4. So Apple, fiscally speaking, their first quarter, that should be when Americans are going out for the Christmas holidays and spending copious amounts of monies on Apple products and lavishly spending. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, I'm not a gambling man. Well, I guess I do gamble on my business by reinvesting into it. But nevertheless, if I were a traditional gambling person, I would probably say outlook for Apple, 4 quarters in a row of negative sales, economic uncertainty. A lot of people and businesses are uncertain with what's going to happen tomorrow. People are pulling back their spending. I don't think their Q1 is going to be any better than Q4. But that's just my 3 cents. It used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation had to make 3 cents. Though, it is still free to click the subscribe button. There, or there. I don't know how your phone is oriented, or in the rare instances your desktop, but nevertheless, it should be somewhere on the screen. Thank you everyone for taking time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of November, so if you could click that button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment is a great way to let me know what I could be doing better, or just sharing an appreciation with how I'm currently doing things. But I'm always looking to improve the show, so critique is always appreciated. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.